Okay, so we have officially started our meeting at 6:34
That's what I have.
ish. All right. And so we'll call to order. Everybody's here. We'll
Okay.
go slow so you can make notes, Gail. And maybe I'll make notes. Maybe I'll make notes too in case you missed something.
Well, now Morgan showed me how to watch these videos. I think I shared that with the group. There are a couple of little steps you have to take. And so I did watch, I watched the April meeting to make sure I had it right.
Okay. All righty, so call to order, roll call, approve the agenda.
I was going to suggest an amendment. I'm moving to amend the agenda to add item 4 on business. It's up for discussion, but that would be a look-see at the letter that Karen Borchert has prepared for the packet. It's not urgent in the sense that the packet doesn't have to be available until July 5th, but she did prepare it and send it to us. And so I would move
Old
to amend
business,
it to add that.
that would be old business.
Mhm,
Okay, number 4,
mhm.
review.
Or at least a
Packet.
discussion. No,
All right,
I will move to approve the agenda as amended.
very good. Thank you.
Second that.
Okay,
Oh, we lost Lori.
where'd Lori go?
Lori?
I think she might have been having some trouble hearing or something because she kind of kept going on and off and on and off. So
Okay, we want to approve the last meeting minutes.
And
pull them up real quick.
I've sent those out.
Yeah, I did review that briefly, but
I watched the video, so I'm confident that they're as accurate as they can be.
yeah, I didn't have any changes to them.
Somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes then?
Move to approve.
Second,
All righty. And homeowner comments, let's see, we only have 4 participants here and we have no attendees, so we'll blow right past that. All righty. So for old business, we were going to discuss the entity manual changes and the board response. And to real quickly look at that, it just we discussed it, the 4 points, and they had actually previously they sent it all to the attorney ahead of time so that when we came back we had it all complete. They had the input and all that. And so that's the gag order. I'll throw that out of the way. Basically what they said was that the attorney felt for step number 1, entity recommends deleting the following on section 4110 about application letters and requesting that they send the packet earlier. They said the board doesn't have the authority to impose those conditions upon a candidate. And so they tossed that out the window. And so they
I thought that was the attorney opinion about requiring an entity member to withdraw if they were running for an elected position. I thought that's what he said was an improper requirement of a candidate.
that's true too. Okay.
Oh,
you're
it's for
right.
both of
Number
them?
2. So entity recommends blah 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 blah. So anyhow, the first step here, they said that, oh, I see what they did. Okay, it says recommend replacing section 410 with the following, and we had put shall, and they put all candidates shall submit. And the other one was we put words in there, and it has to be optional. Submit an optional. So they just changed our wording a little bit on that one, but I don't think it made it in there in the final copy either, because I have the final copy here somewhere that they gave me, and I didn't see it in there at all.
So, sorry, I'm kind of trying to follow all this, and I have not caught up on all of the board meetings, and I apologize. So is what I'm hearing is that there were items discussed in the board meeting about changes that then did not, that they discussed and presumably agreed to, and then those did not make it into the revised version that we were just sent? Is that accurate, Gail?
What we discussed was recommended deleting the following, some lines out of section 4110, deleting the once a candidate application has been accepted, the entity will send a letter. We were going to ask them, rather than us sending the letter, we wanted them to send their bio with their application. Okay. Second thing we discussed was resigning from any committee and requesting that anybody running for the board had resigned from the entity, architecture control, and all that. And the attorney answer was they didn't have that, but he gave us an out, and he says, clearly, if this requirement is voted upon by the members as a bylaw amendment, it would be valid. So he said that we could do that, and I was going to bring that up at the board meetings. I thought we were going to, before we get there. And then number 3 says adding some wording, and we had the wording we wanted. And basically they said that a candidate can withdraw all the way up to printing of the until the time the ballots are printed.
Can I want to comment on that one when you're ready for me to comment, and I want to go back to number 1 a little bit because I'm kind of confused about number 1. Are you ready for me to comment?
Yep,
or
go back to number 1.
Okay, so I thought what I heard you say is that there were discussions about those changes about submitting everything together at once, because this impacts the letter that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
And that there was board discussion about that, and they were going to change some of that wording, but that wording didn't make it into the final entity. Is it in there or not? I guess there's what we discussed, then there's what the board discussed, and then there's what's in the final copy. So I know that what we discussed did not necessarily make it into the final copy as discussed, but did what the board discuss make it into the final draft of the entity manual that we have received?
Well, I have the
I don't
so-called
believe
final
it did.
draft.
Go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, I'd like it just to make a couple of a little bit of background. Basically, I was at my wit's end to find a copy of the approved revised entity manual. And so finally, Joanna Monday said, Gail, I'm sending it to you. This is the revised manual as approved by the board. So I have it in front of me. To answer Karen's question, we no longer ask them to send the bio, that stuff is part of the application packet. It's just gone. I mean, we can ask them to send it, but it's definitely, there are no shells or requirements that they do so.
Okay.
Yes, okay, so I have it here in front of me now too. We
Mhm.
can't say shall, we can ask. So they did change whatever, but it's in there as we can ask them to.
Okay.
Okay,
So there's 2 parts of that. One is if it's a requirement to submit it, and I'd always understood that it actually wasn't like you couldn't be deemed ineligible to run for not having submitted
yes.
that. So it makes sense that the wording match that. Is that your recollection too, Rob, that You were supposed to submit it, but they couldn't like not
That's correct.
like the financial disclosures. If you don't provide the financial disclosures, you don't get approved. Or if you're not a
Right.
member in good standing or whatever. Okay, so that's part one. So that makes sense. And part two is we were trying to have everything submitted all on the same date by the 5th. And so
That's
what's the
fine.
wording on it? Can't be early according to the NNE manual. Do you guys have it in front of you right now? I apologize. I don't have it open right now.
We are not able to. And this is where it's kind of weird. We can't do anything until we open
Okay,
everything and draw names and officially run them through for vetting for in good standing and set the order that they're going to run at before we can even say anything. But Gail brought up a good point. What if they send it in electronic? We know who they are. But we still can't do anything until the day that we open and draw names and, so, you know, for order of on the thing. Then we can real quickly, and that wasn't clear to me if NNE can do it or if the office has to do it. By the manual, it says NNE would send them a letter and say, could you, can make sure you get your bio in if you want to get it in the view, and it has to be here by such and such a date so we can get it in the view.
okay, so it's in the letter requesting it, and the date was a question, and that was my question too, since it's sent electronically. Someone, presumably just the NNE chair, would have visibility to who is running and what their vision and bio is, and
Yeah.
that was my question was, is there a presumption of privacy that that someone shouldn't even, or we can't compel them to send that before the deadline? So it sounds like, yes, we're holding to this. I suppose somebody could send it early, but we can't compel them to.
Yeah, if they send it electronically, and if, the chair could say, hey, thank you for your submission. Would you like to send in your if you could send in your bio now, it would speed things up for making sure it all gets in the view. Go ahead, Gail.
So Karen, what it says in 4.1.5 basically is that your article, your letter to the candidates will provide instructions. So it's really silent on what we do. I think the question of whether or not the candidates have confidentiality until the 5th, they're not really candidates until they have been vetted.
Mhm.
So I think we need to leave it alone as if they choose to use Facebook or whatever to announce they're going to run, fine, freedom if they wish, but it's not going to be our role to confirm or unconfirm until the 5th, because they get vetted to be in good standing and the application is complete. So it will be
Yeah.
basically, if they send that stuff in early, that's the question we can discuss maybe when we discuss it later, or we could discuss it at the next, but you're going to have your deadline for that letter. Well, no, the deadline doesn't use. The deadline simply is July 5th. So yeah, we could discuss it at the June meeting, what is going to go in and not go in, what we ask and don't ask, and they may do, and et cetera, optional and et cetera, if you want.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that from the wording, but I think that makes sense. At least I'm clarified on what, because we want the letter instructions to match the manual so that it's
Right.
consistent between the two.
We're
So,
allowed to put all that in the instructions for if you're going to
Mhm.
run for the board, you have to fill this thing out, and you could also add your
mhm,
other stuff too at the same time if you would like. But
Yeah.
then we can't do anything officially until we've actually opened, after Labor Day, opened it up and do our draw and vet the candidates, and then it's a little more official then.
yeah, okay,
So the next thing that happened was section 412 was erased from the manual that said after 2 business days. That was blocked out, and 412 was changed to a candidate who wishes to withdraw shall provide written notice to the chair of NNE and the board president no reason for withdrawal is dated submission to withdraw constitutes the candidate's express consent for Sudden Valley to notify members of the candidate's withdrawal. Any withdrawal shall be effective on the date that it is first received by the chair or the board president. And they put "and" at the top and "or" at the bottom because we're not sure who they're going to send the letter to. They might send it to the board president. So we wanted it "and" or. The Sudden Valley Community Association will provide notice to the membership of the candidate's withdrawal via official SVCA notification channels only up to the time the ballots are printed. After that point, they can't say anything because it could constitute shaping, trying to shape the ballot or whatever.
Well,
So-
no, that isn't what the attorney said. He just said that people may have already voted after it's mailed. That was the date he used. So, and I think it's important that we're clear about the reason why. So
They
he
didn't
said,
use the attorney's wording. They used,
right,
they went with the board's wording of, the attorney wrote.
well, Mike, you might not want to say that out loud in case it's confidential, if to read the
Yeah.
actual wording, just in
Well,
case.
the attorney's response and the board's response, they went with the ballots printed, not ballots mailed.
Okay, so here's where I wanted to bring up something with this. Number one, if I recall, and I'm paraphrasing and whatever, we've seen it, so if I get in trouble, whatever. He said this was a business decision, not a legal decision, but then he did give his legal reasoning for why it would be the mail date. And the reason was some people could have already voted prior to the announcement that someone has withdrawn. So some people would have certain information when they voted and some people would have other information when they voted. I don't agree with it, but I get the point of what he's trying to say there. But that was based on mail date, which is different than print date. The other reason why so number one, my thought is if we're going to go with attorney's opinion, go with the attorney's opinion, because otherwise we're just opening up a can of worms of this is just what we decided. So if you're going to kind of use that the attorney said as your reasoning, then let's make it what he said, which was mail date. My other reason about thinking that mail date is more appropriate is because I don't see on either the fancy calendar that Gail delivered to my house or in the contract an actual print date stated. So in the calendar, I don't see this is the date it's going to be printed or it has to be printed by this date. And I also don't see that in the contract. There's a date that Sudden Valley sends the proofs and there's a date that they, send approval, but not an actual date that it's printed. And if the reasoning was, after it's printed, then that name is still going to appear and it's just going to be confusing. That date is actually a few days before the print date. So what are we actually talking about? Print date to me is not defined. Mail date is. It's in our calendar and it's also in the contract that election materials mailed out to SVCA members September 27th. So that's an actual date. Print date, I don't see.
We have a print date. I know we do have a date that the final date that we could get stuff in, I gotta find my calendar here.
We have a final date that we can send things to them. That's not the date it's printed.
That it'll go to print the next day.
Right, so what date are we talking about here? The last day that we can send them something? or
Last
the
day
date it's
the
printed?
board submit photos by. It was September approval of the final is 9/15 is the GM's final board approval of the election material. And so 5/15 is the final date that we approve everything that's on it. We have until that point, we could say this person withdrew and take their name off.
Agreed, that's not the print date. That's not described as the print date. That's the last day we give approval. So if that's the date they
Okay.
want, they need to change the wording to the last day that Sudden Valley can send changes to the ballot.
If there's gonna be requirement in the manual, it needs to be something you can measure from. So if there's no print date, then you can't measure it to see if you're in compliance.
Thanks, Rob. That's a better way of saying print date is not defined. I can't find print date defined in the calendar or the contract.
Does it neutralize the attorney's concern if we use the mail date? Because no one can have voted before the mail date because they don't have the ballots. And the idea is no one's going to vote with incomplete information. So they can withdraw up until the mail date. And as the article goes on to say, SBCA or NNE then can publicize that information using the official channels.
Mhm.
So that when the ballots come out, they may have the names on it, but if if this information has been made public before the mail date, even if the ballot may contain a name or two of people who wish to withdraw, that information has been shared. If they withdraw after the mail date, then we're back in the kind of hot water or can of worms that we have been trying to deal with. But I gather that the legal opinion is that could disenfranchise, or at least people could feel disenfranchised if they voted for those folks and then learned that they had withdrawn. So therefore we say nothing,
Okay, so.
just say
I'm
nothing
gonna go
until the
out.
AGM.
I have a note here that I'm going to. Well, we'll hold off here. We'll finish this up. But anyhow, I agree with what you said, Karen. Print date not defined. And so they need to decide what is that? Are we gonna set a print date or are we gonna make it final approval date on 9/15? Or are we gonna
Or
wait
mail date.
up to mail date, which is the mail date was 9/27?
Which is what the attorney said. He said
I
mail
would
date
like,
in his.
I would like to have it done before, so it's not printed. Ideally,
Agreed.
You'd like to make the people have to withdraw before and then Sudden Valley doesn't say anything afterwards?
Yeah, because we can't control when they withdraw.
Yeah.
We can wish that they would withdraw in a way that it could be shared, but things happen, right?
it'd be nice to be able to say, if you decide to withdraw, please do it before 9/15. That's the print date, so that you're not printed on the ballot.
Well, I do think we could probably share that separately and let people know this is the last date. Nothing can be changed after that date, but hold on, I'm trying to think.
But announcing withdrawals that come in after that date, but before the mail date, as currently in the current revised NNE manual, we would not, of course, there's the ambiguity of the print date, but we SVCA NNE would not announce any withdrawals after that print date, final approval date, whichever it turns out to be. Although that date, as you pointed out, is a week or 12 days before the mail date. The 15th versus the 27th, quite a bit of time. So that, I
So-
believe, is why that is the argument in favor of the mail date, because there could be more. No one will have voted, no one could have voted, but there could have been people who failed to change their mind and their names are on the ballot. And so I think in our earlier discussions this year, our desire was to share that information so that people didn't vote for candidates who have decided they're not available. Now we've heard a legal opinion that perhaps people would believe that they've been disenfranchised, so that the information, any information available should be available to everyone before anyone has voted. Once they've voted, they may have voted for someone who's not going to be available, but we will not, Sudden Valley NNE will not have any responsibility for calling that out until the AGM. And then we call it out, because if votes have come in for someone who's not serving, we call it out and say they're being counted but disregarded.
It's basically saying to me that after the mail date, after the possibility that someone could have voted, Sudden Valley doesn't take upon itself any obligation to notify you don't think that's what it's saying? To notify
They won't.
Huh?
They
Right, I'm
will,
saying that's what the legal opinion was, is that
Right.
once people might have voted, Sudden Valley isn't going to communicate with people, or Sudden Valley shouldn't communicate with people that there's been a change, because some people may have already voted and didn't have that information at the time. Of course, because that information didn't exist, that's the reason. But here's the issue, is that in reality, that information gets out, whether Sudden Valley says it or not.
it
People,
will get out.
it will get out. So what I would like, my feeling on this is just my opinion, is shorten the window of differing information. So there's going to be community information, and there's going to be what Sudden Valley officially says. Regardless of when that date is, people are also likely to be upset that Sudden Valley didn't let them know that a candidate had withdrawn, because some people might still vote for that person. That's not what the attorney said, and so I support going with his advice on this for that reason. But the reality is that if that happens, if someone withdraws later, there's going to have two sets of information, and that is going to cause issues. And I would like to shorten that window, because like Gail said, we don't have any control over when people choose to withdraw. So if we can lengthen the time that Sudden Valley is willing to try to communicate to people, to me, it reduces where there's a divergence of information. My preference would be to put out all information that we have as soon as we have it, but that wasn't the advice the attorney gave us.
Yes,
And I
Richard.
think it makes sense to stick with what he said, but in sticking with what he said, actually stick with what he said, not a
Well,
separate interpretation of what
Well,
he said.
I
May
agree.
Make a motion then, just so we can keep our meeting moving. I'll move, we request the board to change 4.1.12 and change it to it's going to be I think the 9th line, and 4.1.12 or the third from the bottom, to read only up to the time the ballots are mailed. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, so we're gonna request that if a candidate withdraws, that we strike the two final print date, which
Which we
wasn't
don't have yet.
defined, and it's not defined. And that's the reason why his print date isn't defined, to go with the attorney's suggestion up to mail date.
That's what I would say. And Gail,
But
Well-
do we request, do we urge, do we recommend?
recommend,
Recommend.
And do we need to vote on this motion on the floor?
I think
Under
so.
Roberts?
Well, in due course, I mean, if we have discussion. GC and then KB. I mean, we have been having the discussion, so I thought it might move it along to have a
Yeah.
motion.
Sure. No, I was just, yeah.
Okay, so that's done.
Well, wait, we haven't voted.
Oh, I thought we did.
You can
Oh, we
call.
made a motion and second, okay, or a discussion on that then is. Is there,
think we've
do we
I
need
think we've had
discussion
it.
on that?
Yeah, I think we've had it. It's just me.
Okay, what's the vote? How many, all four recommending mail date attorney suggestion? Okay, so it's unanimous.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, I can't spell unanimous, so I put it there 100%.
Well, so you're not the secretary.
I misspelled unanimous horribly there. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. This fourth part was section 414, status of votes cast, and they all agreed the status of the votes cast. If somebody bails out and they still get votes, the votes will be counted, but they won't be brought into any part of the election. And I will go back and look at all this, and Gail, I think, has looked at all that to see if all that was done and in the new manual. And we also want to recommend that the board members and NNE members in the booklet be changed to current.
Page 5. It's the
Yeah.
old NNE committee and the old board secretary.
And
I
the
think
date,
I have a more complete motion that I've created. Could I just read it? It would supplement the motion that we've just passed, because it covers a couple of other items. And I worked it out pretty carefully, because I think this is very sensitive and I'd like it to go through. So I'm going to move this, and then we could have a second, and then we could discuss, and we could do whatever. Since nominations and elections relies on a timely and accurate manual to communicate with applicants and candidates during the 2023 election season, and since the revised NNE manual currently available still requires a few substantive corrections, namely cover date should be changed to 2023. Page 5, signatures of current board secretary and of current NNE members. Page 10, and we've just went over, that was the motion that we just made. Change only up to the time the ballots are printed to only up to the time the ballots are mailed. That we've done that motion already, but there is one last one to maybe bundle them up. Page 11, pagination was a problem with the existing one, but it's 4.2.13, replace communications committee with nominations and elections committee, and that has to do with the candidate forums.
yes,
So, and so I go on with my long motion, I've printed it out, along with many smaller miscellaneous corrections, pagination, style, consistency, etc. It is moved that the nominations and elections request the board to approve these 4 substantive changes at its 5/25 meeting and provide a date certain by which a complete, accurate, and publishable 2023 NNE manual will be available, so that we'll have something that we can use for Karen's letter. Her letter isn't due yet. It does have to reflect what will be in the actual approved official manual.
and
That's
so
my-
I would
making-
second.
you're making that as a motion,
Yes,
and Rob
Ron.
seconds it,
okay.
and you have all that written up nice and neatly, right?
I do, and I'm not good at screen sharing, or I sent it to you all, though. I thought I sent
Okay,
it.
I'll
I
have
saw
to
it.
find it because I want to take it with me tomorrow night so that I can
I'll make
read
sure
it.
you have it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Uh,
hopefully, and just a little bit more background. So when Joanne sent me she called it the revised manual on Monday, I went through it. I spent all of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I don't know, proofing it very carefully. And I have sent it back to her with these changes and with the proofs, just FYI. I know as NNE secretary, I would think maybe I could even create it. But I think that right now, we have a new GM who's learning the ropes and wants to make sure she's covering all the bases. At any rate, a lot of things are being done by admin, and in a sense, it's less work. But
Historically, the last NNE manual that came out, the one that we are discussing right now,
mhm,
Nancy, myself, and Steve did all that on Google Docs, and Steve was really good with Google Docs, and he changed all the lines, and we went through it letter by letter, and
mhm.
period, question marks, and everything, and spacing and all that, and then presented it as a finished document. So that's our job to do that. So we should not ask staff to do that.
Well, I
Um,
think that Joanne is running this, and I believe that she is asked, I don't think she's doing it herself, I would hope not, but I think she is tasking someone with updating it, working on the formatting errors. That's my understanding. I'm not sure how to handle that part, Michael. I mean, I volunteered to do it when I
personally-
wrote to her.
Historically, when Linda was doing this and we made the changes, and when Nancy was chair and we made the changes, we presented a finished document both times to the board
Mhm.
and got their approval for it. Staff did not do this.
Well, shall we vote on the motion and then discuss a recommendation? I did volunteer to do it because it's work. It's just work, and it's work I've done all my life. But I didn't want to step on toes if there's a process underway.
I think we've made a motion to, and second it, to these 4 points that you have here.
Mhm.
The other point is make a motion of, do we want N&E to present a finished document, or do we want to have staff request staff to make the changes?
Should we vote on the first motion and then make a second motion? I would vote for that. I would vote for voting.
Yeah, let's do that.
Agreed.
Okay, so I vote in favor of,
I-
call the question. I vote in favor of Gail's,
Of the
motion.
long motion. Okay, so that one's
yes,
unanimous. And then the second one is, and we can discuss, is someone going to make a motion?
I don't know if we
You know,
need, I don't know if we
mean-
need a motion to talk about editing the document. Maybe, I don't know, but,
Make a motion that we present a finished document to the board for them to approve. That N&E makes a complete document the way that that we approve, make and approve a complete document to the board for them to accept.
I second that.
Okay, so that's seconded by Karen. Well, normally the secretary would do that, and when I sign on to be secretary, I assume I do things like that. So I'm willing to do it. But I am aware that there may be another process in play right now.
can I ask a question? My question is, I'm used to doing documents like this, and I saw in the past where Steve was editing. That's a lot to just hand over to you, Gail. Thank you for doing that. But if we were to say, hey, let's get a couple of us or anybody who's willing to sit down and help with that and proofread as we go along, does that have to be an official Zoom meeting? I mean, can we? Okay.
We
So,
took 5 and 6 weeks or months doing this meetings where we
alright.
worked through each step and all that. And then actually we did a bunch of it on our own and then came back. But you're right, Rob. We came back all on our own with our finished suggestions and went through them and put them in and took them out and made a final document together. But
It's
do we
just
want
stuff,
this to take another month to get done, or it's not that there
Yeah.
isn't that much to change. It's 4 points. I mean,
yeah.
it's a few pages. It's just a few things on a page that need changed.
No, I don't think it's real hard. It's just sometimes I'm the style that I like to collaborate in teams and whatnot. So I'm just saying I'm willing to help if anybody needs help. I'm kind of used to it. When I was in the workplace, they'd hand us a dozen donuts and a pot of coffee and said, write the process and don't leave the conference room until you're done, So.
So Gail, you had something to say, didn't you?
Yeah, only basically, Rob, no, I know what you're saying, and to be honest, I would rather not have this thing run on for another 2 months. I don't think we can do it. We need to have our finished document by date certain so that we can continue, with the recruitment and et cetera. However, apart from formatting and some small things, the changes, there are the four major changes. I think that Michael could bring them, we voted that he will bring them to tomorrow night's meeting and ask approval of them. And they'll say yay or nay. I mean, that's the way it is. I could do this pretty quickly. I am also more than happy if Joanne has lined up someone who wants to do it and part of her staff who has the skill set to let them do it, because the rest is very small stuff. I also sent you guys my proofing. It's a one-page document, page by page, section number by section number, missing period, you know, inconsistent capitalization. It's boring stuff, but you know, I have a little press. I mean, I've been a writer and a publisher. This is what I do basically. But it wouldn't be a lot of work for me to do it. It's not, but if Joanne has something all set up, and especially if the board is comfortable with the substantive changes, hey, I mean, it's work. It's all, when we do this volunteering stuff, it's work. It's just work.
Well, so Gail, I don't think there's anything incorrect about the N&E committee making changes to their document and handing a finished document to the board for approval. When we were on the
Well, the
committee,
problem is the board
when we
believes
were-
it's already approved a document.
right.
If
What I was
we
just
have a
gonna say, what I was
problem-
gonna say is when I was on the communications committee, we wrote a lot of documentation. In fact, we wrote a new neighbor welcome handbook to them.
Oh.
So, you know, there's precedents. We've done our own documentation. Went to leadership for approval, and that's, I think, the right process. So I'm agreeing with you.
I guess my devil's advocate concern here is if N&E submitting this is going to require N&E to get together again before we can submit it to the board, is that going to just extend the process even
Another
further?
month.
Because we first have to get it together, and then we'd have to meet to approve it, and then we would have to, which we could, I mean, I don't mind having another meeting, but then we would have to send it to the board and get it on the agenda. And agreed, I am surprised by how this process has worked, in that I felt that it was N&E's document.
Yeah.
And we would be making the changes, and what I was expecting from the last board meeting when they discussed it was, hey, we can't quite do this, let's not do that, go back and rework it maybe, and that the changes, we would bring back a second draft of changes, and maybe at that point, yes, it's put it in a whole thing. So I'm a little surprised by how this has evolved, I guess, but we're on a time crunch, and so we need to do it the fastest way possible. So if the fastest way possible is Gail just doing it and being like, this is it, and we all agree, and then the board approves, yes. But if it's going to take multiple meetings and weeks and whatever for N&E to do it versus staff, which do seem to have taken ownership of it, just in that, you know, the changes weren't sent back to us to make, they were just made.
I think they still pending, to be honest. I don't know that the document, apart from incorporating the language based on you know, the legal opinion, that part is in the new manual. But well, we're asking for four really substantive changes, and if the board approves them, and we give the language, we have given the language we would like, and they're small. I mean, anyone who is skilled at Microsoft Word or whatever can probably do this within 30 minutes. But the formatting issue of the document is a much bigger one. It's a big one, because I think that the document that the board has, the document we have on hand right now is probably an amalgamation of documents from the past. And that's why the formatting keeps changing, and why the pagination changes, and et cetera. This is mechanical work, but it's not, doesn't affect our process as as the committee, manages the elections. So to be honest, with all due respect, if we had anticipated this earlier, we perhaps could have said, NNE will take care of it. But like you, we all probably thought we were. And so I think now, especially Joanne has set up some work plan, to get this done. I would be more than happy to go out and fertilize my roses tomorrow. At any rate, but I would also be willing to do it if it would help her out and if she would trust us, because that's where I think then they will need to prove and the board will need to prove, and that's why I think my instinct is to say if the board will accept the 4 things that we're asking for, and then do the manual labor involved in just cleaning it up, great, that's great. That's my
I feel
simple.
like that's just the open question there is what is everyone's understanding of who owns this document? I thought it was.
NNE owns this document. That's
Does-
what I'm trying to say. I've said this 3 times. The last 3 NNE chairs headed up the changes in the NNE manual. And we did it, we got board approval, and then we put it all together and submitted it as a finished document. That's the way it was done, and they approved it. They approved everything before we printed it all up, and then we handed them a finished document, and they posted it online, made copies, and handed them out. That's what you have in your books, is what we did last year. And NNE put the whole thing together. It doesn't, what we're doing this time is just a few lines here and there and a couple of names on a couple of pages. It won't take more. I could sit here and do it tonight in a half hour. And it'll be fine.
The thing is also, I don't think we have a Word document. I think what we have is a PDF.
Well, we did it in Google Docs and then copied it over to a Word document, but at
Yeah,
any rate,
the master.
we have a lot to cover here yet, and we've already got an hour into this, so.
Well,
How about, I have 2 notes here. One, present the 4 points that Gail made and we voted on for board approval. And then ask the board, do you want us to put this together like we did in the past? Or do you want the staff to put this together and get their answer and leave it at that?
that sounds good to me.
Can we amend the motion then? And I might change the wording a little bit to say NNE would, what's the word? I don't know if recommend is it, but NNE would like to take these changes and make some other corrections and submit the full draft to the board for approval. And then there's no question of what was approved because we have it, we created it.
Yeah. Well,
I would say NNE will take the task, call it a task, will take the task of what you said eloquently, but I would add I would say task.
Mhm.
So are we amended? So we had a motion on the table that was to wait.
The motion
was
was initially to present the motion was NNE would present a finished document to the board for their approval.
Okay, so that
was
is,
Michael's motion and you seconded that.
yeah, so it kind of changes the previous one that we approved, which was to ask for a date certain. And so we're taking it beyond that and saying, we will provide that to the board. So the motion, this motion as it stands is still accurate, but I'm just wondering if there's anything we have to go back or are we?
We could leave the other one in place. I mean, the board will probably do what it does and we will learn tomorrow night. And of course, I would be hopeful that it would even come up because we've had a lot of difficulty. I think Michael has brought this as an agenda of the board for the past 3 or 4, if not more meetings, you know.
I mean, you can. Yeah, you can do it in a board meeting. You can, I mean, just like Gail did this time, ask for an amendment of the
Sent
agenda.
them
as
an
long-
email this today saying I would like to put this in an emanual back on the
Okay.
agenda as old business.
Okay,
Because there's parts of it that are not, we do not have a complete in an manual, the way that
Yeah.
you put it together.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's good.
And I think that if you said that we're willing to take the task of doing the edits, I think Joanne would probably welcome that, because then her staff can go do other meaningful work, and we can work on this one as well.
Okay,
Well,
Yeah.
Michael, do you want to amend your motion then to say that your motion is any, how should we put it? Volunteers, any is willing to prepare the final draft?
I like Rob's words. Entity will take the task
Oh,
of
I'm sorry.
presenting the board with a final draft.
That's our motion, but we do need the board itself to
second
approve
that.
it.
And since we've discussed it, how about a vote?
Well, we can vote, but I need to be clear on the motion, and I'm not. So could someone please?
The
restate
motion is, the motion is, before us that says N&E will take the task to make all changes approved and then present a complete manual to N&E manual to the board.
We move that N&E will take the task of updating or correcting the
All
manual.
the approved points and present a new complete N&E manual for board approval.
I like that.
Because first I'm going to ask them to approve these 4 points
Right.
Mhm.
and anchor them in. And then also establish, the other pages that like, this is the wrong date, this is the wrong people, this is
Mhm.
here. And then the second part is we will complete the task of rewriting the manual with all the board approved changes and then present a complete manual.
So that's the motion.
And it was seconded.
And who seconded it, Karen? Well, you
Yeah.
seconded the first one, Karen.
Yeah, I seconded it.
Well, I know the people are anxious to vote, but I might vote against it, and this is why. Number one, selfishly, it's going to be work for me, but more importantly, really, because I am willing to work, is why I've, stuck my head out to do this, is I'm worried that it will run into more delays. The board won't like it. They will not accept it. They'll want to do it. Maybe if that's the answer. I mean, we're saying we're moving that we will present, and then what? I think we still need.
So what if we amend to say if the board does not approve in any making these changes,
Mhm.
they need, like what our previous motion said, we need a
Mhm.
date certain that we will be provided. So we're
Oh,
willing
I
to
like
take on the
that. I
work.
like that. I like that. Because
So-
that's only, I just always want to just keep our thing going, not
Yeah.
get stuck in the weeds of obstruction or I don't know, people being overworked. If not approved, if this motion or if this offer not approved by board, then we need a date certain. We'll repeat the language from the first one.
Yeah, they'll need to vote on a certain date that we will be provided with the final
Mhm.
publishable copy.
Okay.
Okay, I think I've got it.
Now
So
are you
it-
happy?
I did volunteer to do the Bible of N&E to redo it. Okay,
All in favor?
All righty, reluctantly.
Thanks, Gail.
Okay. I better get back to the agenda. Where are we with everything? But I knew that that would be a big one. Yeah.
We still got a lot to go here. We need to real quickly, we need to move on this stuff a little quicker here. So we were gonna look at the letter for the view for the election.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's the letter, it's the announcement, really. I sent it to you all. I sent it again today. I have been in touch with Bill Helm, and I told him he would have it tomorrow. But I do need NNE to approve it. In the meantime, Michael, you've said Joanne has requested that we send it to her, and she'll submit it as part of her packet. Is that correct?
She suggested that we could send it to her and she would put it all in with the packet that they were gonna send also for next month's publication, yes. But it was a suggestion. It wasn't like, no, you send it to me and I'll send it in. So I did mention to her, I says, Gail has been in contact, she knows Bill, and so I said, I'll let you know tomorrow night.
I would
So
prefer to cut out the middleman and just,
Linda
Yeah,
sent
but
her own in.
yeah, I'm not quite certain. I mean, certainly NNE collaborates with staff and whatnot, but I don't see any reason to put additional burden on them. I don't see any reason, like, things sometimes just get missed in the communication. I think I have it up and I think I know how to screen share. If you guys want me to,
Can you do that? I was gonna try to
Yeah.
find it.
What are
I
you
go-
volunteering for, Carolyn? I didn't hear.
I just pulled up the views announcement
Oh.
that is this the correct one?
Yeah, that's it. Mhm.
Yep, okay. So we can just look through this and probably could even change it unless it's, what is this? Is this PDF? No. I don't know. I can't change it right now, but we can
No,
read
I
through
need
it.
to- Yeah.
Can you guys see it?
yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have to scroll it up and down though, so.
Okay. I think
Can I
I,
ask a question? Can you scroll there where it says completed documents? I
Mhm.
don't want to get too tedious, but
Ah.
are those application document? I mean, could we put some kind of a noun on there or something that describes what those documents, so it says completed documents. If I've never ran, what documents?
Well, this is just our first opening shot, that the application period begins on July 5th. And then Karen's letter will go to people who actually request an application. It will be part of the actual application. And it will spell out what they need to do. So
And
I
there
don't
will
know.
be another post, there will be another post in
In July.
July's,
Right.
and it should have, like the stuff I sent you today, Gail, it should have the complete date set up in it of the date of the opening on July 5th, the closing on September 5th, that will
Mhm.
draw names, the withdraw date of whichever we get for time of
Mhm.
mailing and all that, and the date of the election. And so, but those are in in that stuff that I sent you today, that were copies of the last 3 years of what Linda put in the view, and you can see how she did that. I thought they were done really well. But
Mhm.
this is just kind of like the opening salvo of, hey, elections are coming up, and people can start seeing it. So I think this will be fine.
I'll take a last look before I send it to Bill to make sure I don't have a date or something in here that now conflicts with the revised legal language. There might be something, and if so, I might just take it out because we're
Yeah.
still working through a couple of things there anyway, right? And then the Karen letter that will go with the actual application packet will be correct. And then also the July views announcement, because Karen's letter doesn't go in the views, it goes in the packet.
Yeah. It
Well,
is like a
I'd like
cover
to
letter.
move that we approve this with the caveat that Gail will recheck any date that might be in conflict with our understanding of the.
I'll second that.
NNE.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Gail, this is small and it's probably not that big of a deal yet, but I thought that I read that the Welcome Center closes for business, in-person business at 4 p.m. I imagine they're not going to turn anyone away, but I'm actually thinking ahead for when like ballots are due and whatnot. Like if that's the advertised time is 4 p.m. Is it actually open till 4:30? Your thing says 4:30 and that's what I had previously thought it to be, but I think it's fine for now. I'm just curious about that time.
Totally small thing, but I'll check again.
I hope it's the 4:30 because that's what it says in the NNE manual for accepting ballots till 4:30 at the ballot box.
So
Yeah.
it has to stay unlocked until 4:30.
Yep.
So I
the
wonder
ballot
why
box. But
maybe
I'm
I
hoping the office stays open.
might need
That's
to
what
for
we're
election
calling
season.
End of business anyway, so I don't know,
Yeah.
but anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's just something we need to verify with staff is that the
Yeah, so before you send this, Gail, make sure you verify with staff that their regular business hours are from 9 to 4:30 or from 9 to 4 o'clock.
I will do that. Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
so we have to call the vote on this one?
all in favor? Okay. We kind of have the AGM timeline. We've looked at it earlier, so I think we'll be fine with that.
Mhm.
We have our July 5th. Applications open September, day after Labor Day, we will do our draw. Gather all the applications and draw, and we need at least 2 or 3 people there. And a staff person, which last year was Joanne, and she vetted everybody real quickly. We put names in the hat, drew an order, and away we went. Pretty simple. And we set the ballot box out that day also. So that's the basic timeline. We will have other little things to do as they come. Right now, the big wait right now is for the budget. And then we start putting the packet together. So I think we're fine on that. And so step 4 is review Karen's.
We've sort of talked about it already,
we
and
have.
it's not urgent exactly. It will be urgent though by June, because then we'll have to, well, at least we have to have something we've approved to put in the actual packets
Yep.
available July 7th.
Do you want to throw it on the screen real quick?
Yep. So I actually think a lot of the stuff we talked about tonight gives me enough
Mhm.
direction to kind of change or
Re-
update some of the
Yep.
things that I had questions on or that hadn't.
Mhm.
I don't know what this, yeah, okay. So I need to change administrative office. I'm gonna do this to, I'll match Gail's letter, the same wording that she uses.
Mhm.
The Welcome Center.
Yeah, and put in the actual address, I think is good.
Okay.
So based on, let's see. I think I need to change. Well, I think this wording is okay. Please note, in addition to the application materials, all candidates are asked to, or I could say encouraged to
I
submit a
like
maximum
encouraged, yeah,
one word,
but
encouraged.
I
Yeah,
like
I like-
encouraged.
okay.
I use that down below. Okay. And I said by the application deadline, but that's not true. It's September 7th, right?
Mhm.
Because we decided we have to give them 2 days. Oops,
Yeah, because of, the issue that we
Yeah.
don't want to reveal who they are.
yeah. 2, 3. These can be emailed to TBD. Okay, board candidates additionally are encouraged, so same wording. Then
Mhm.
electronically, maximum 500 essay, blah, blah, blah. No later than, so this is again, September 7th. Printed in the October reviews, the biographies and photos are also. Okay, so that explains how they are used.
Maybe take out.
After 5
paragraph right
business
now.
days, remove that whole line there.
Remove it all.
Yep.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be there yet. This is probably.
Well, I think they took it out of NNE anyway.
They did.
so-
It's up till whatever date we're gonna get them to agree to tomorrow night.
Right.
Yeah, and then,
At least-
well, I thought they took out the you can withdraw anytime. So we could put in wording. We
Yeah.
could put in wording that says after this date,
Mhm.
you'll still appear in the
In the ballot.
in the ballot. I'm gonna
Yeah.
just put a tickler to remind myself.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
After September,
15th,
yeah, I guess that's right.
It's somewhere
that's
around
when
there.
we get to submit
And let's
our.
see. Final approval, no changes. I mean, we can do better
Yeah,
wording,
yeah,
but
yeah.
Okay,
we'll see. Okay,
just
and
put on there
then,
withdraw, put the
And by the
word
way,
in
it's
there,
not-
withdraw.
Okay,
oh, keep
above
skipping around on
wherever.
me.
Yeah, right in there somewhere. So you know it's for the withdraw, if withdrawn. All right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. 2 candidate forums, nominated.
we had talked about 3, I found in my notes from my meeting.
Oh, okay.
But we should maybe
Uh,
say 2 or 3, or we could say, I don't know.
I'm just gonna highlight this because that's gonna mean it's a question for me.
Okay,
The comment from a board person was 2
Okay.
candidate forums. And I said, well, could we have other ones like the last ones? And they said, Sudden Valley, well, does 2 candidate forums. You may do other things, but we have to cross that bridge when we get there.
I
If
was just gonna
somebody-
say, says
Yeah.
who? I mean,
last year, the extra ones were all done by the candidates themselves. They were
Yeah.
informal.
Yes. Okay, I think it looks great. We'll fine tune it. After, we'll know a whole lot more after tomorrow night.
yeah, so if you could, I don't always get to watch those board meetings anytime timely. So if you want to send us or me just
I
a,
will.
and I will go ahead and update this with what I know at
Mhm.
that time and send it back out, and then we can hopefully approve it quickly at the next meeting because it will need to be ready for the
Okay,
end of June.
all right. So then new business is discuss the entity chair and secretary positions.
Well, I think that's on you, Michael,
All right. So
at least to describe, as far as
I
I'm
sent-
concerned, you can
I
stay
sent out
chair
a
all
big
summer, all
email.
year.
I sent out an agenda to you guys that had
Uh-huh.
all my ABCs and Ds on it. But Gail said we'll just send it to the board as discussed changes in entity chair and secretary positions. Anyhow, I'm July or June, starting early in June, I'm going to be busy on Thursday. I booked events for my cart, and I've had events. I wouldn't have done it except I've had one big event taken away from me that I usually do on Wednesday night. And they chose to go a different direction and choose new vendors because it's been the same for so many years. They thought they'd shake things up and use different vendors, and we'll see how it goes for them, because I'm sure they're going to get some comments about where the hell's the hot dog guy. But at any rate, and a couple other of the food vendors that they were going to change. And so at any rate, so I booked these things on Thursday night. One is the Elizabeth Park music thing, and a couple other little things that are on Thursday night. So I'm not going to be able to go to the board meetings. And I brought this up to AJ a while back, 3 months ago. And I said, what do you think about having Gail come as chair pro tem? And then I come back in, September, and that when we have representation to bring information back to NNE and all. And his comment was, oh, it's not going to hurt you to miss, there's not that much going to be going on. It won't hurt to miss that many meetings. I said, it's 3 months. So
Right
yeah,
in election season.
yeah, right before the election. Yeah, we really want to be in the dark for 3 months.
Yeah.
So, so that's what's going on. So I'm going to have to, what I wrote here was Michael's business is going to keep him from being able to attend the board meeting and represent NNE committee from June 8th through August 24th. And it's imperative that NNE has representation at board meetings. These are the options that I came up with. The biggest consideration is in the contract with Unilect that only the general manager and the chair of entity are allowed to communicate about the AGM and what's going on for November. And they put that in the contract so that not anybody could talk with Catherine and Andrew or at Unilect. It had to be the board or the entity chair, which would be Joanne or the entity chair. And that was put in the contract this year because of a reason. At any rate, so Michael will step down as chair and will elect a new chair and secretary. B, Michael will step down and we will elect Gail as chair pro tem and someone else as secretary. C, Michael will step down and we'll elect Gail as chair and Michael as secretary. Or D, Michael and Gail will change back to their original roles after my work commitment is completed, and then Michael resume the chair position through the AGM with Gail shadowing him to learn the challenges in running the election. The reason I have Gail there is I know Gail was elected and you guys volunteered, so I don't know the parameters of you were elected, I was elected, but I stayed because nobody filled my spot and you guys volunteered. And so Gail and I are both actually elected people. And I don't know how the what the board's going to say about volunteer positions. So that was my thing, not to ace you out or anything, because I think you're all capable of doing this.
Yeah.
But that was my consideration of that we were actually stood on the grounds that we were voted in.
Well, and the
And so-
community. I mean, I think it represents the community better to have actual elected people as
Okay.
the chair.
I
So
agree.
I want to make a motion that we did that. I want to make a motion that we reestablish who's chair and who's secretary for N&E.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
So I think it makes sense based on your circumstances to
Mhm.
elect Gail as chair to represent N&E to the board and to elect you or whatever, nominate you as secretary. And I think to keep it clean, we can just revisit it at a later date if that arrangement no longer makes sense, rather than putting additional things in for the future, I guess.
Okay, so that was option C. That Michael stepped down, we elect Gail as chair and Michael as secretary. Rob?
I agree with everything that Karen has said. Michael, I think that there was a piece in there, one of the options where you indicated that when you're not as busy with your business coming back, there would be mentoring going on with you and Gail. And I think that's excellent. We need a good transition for you, for your knowledge for Gail. And I mean, I'm a volunteer. The community didn't elect me, so I think it's absolutely right that Gail would take over as chair.
Gail, do you have
I
feelings?
My thought was, and well, let me, okay, so the two things, and I kind of brought this up with Gail last night. They said, one, if I step down, we elect Gail as chair and me as secretary, they're going to have to discontinue my email address and set Gail up with an email address. And then if we 1st of September, we vote me back in as chair and Gail as secretary, they're gonna have to cancel her email address and put me back in with an email address so I can finish communication and all that in with board communication. And so I was gonna try to sell it to them as Gail would come as chair pro tem. You wouldn't have to do anything other than just let her sit in the meetings. She would convey what was going on to me as chair in our N&E meetings or in emails. And then the staff wouldn't have to do anything. There wouldn't be any of redoing and resetting up and all that and everything, and to make it easy on them. But I don't know how that's going to go.
Well, from an administrative standpoint, turning off an email is really simple. It's like 2 minutes. First I want to say, Michael, I admire your leadership. I admire your perseverance, and your knowledge about N&E. I really appreciate you taking the time to go run these meetings and go to the board meetings. But having said that, I think that the chair pro tem could be construed by some board members as being a unrecognizable position. And I just think that we as an N&E, we of course we report to leadership, but we what's the word I'm trying to use? We are a committee that makes our decisions, and we would decide who our leader would be or who our leaders would not be. We could change 3 times throughout the year. That's our decision. I just think it's cleaner this way to say you need to step down for a little bit. And Gail is our chair. And if we decide to do something different in September, then that's our decision, But
really
again,
have to.
I respect what. Yep.
I agree. I don't even really have to come back as chair. Gail we can talk about if Gail's chair and she's dealing with Catherine and she has questions, she can talk to me and I can say, oh, this is what we did, or these are the answers, or this is what I would suggest from past what you do. And that's kind of letting her take the leadership role, and me shadowing her and saying, no, do this. And in the past we did this, so this is what I would suggest, but you go ahead and talk to her and all that. So I can do it from the background also, and just leave Gail in as chair for all the way through the rest of the election.
So I loved the idea of chair pro tem at the beginning when you originally said it, and I really appreciate both of your dedication to running, and especially Michael, you of the mentoring and all that. But it's the idea that they kind of balked at that makes me concerned that we would end up getting shut out of communications at a time when it's critical that N&E have a seat at the table and be up to speed on everything that's going on election related. And so, it was a great idea, and I really appreciate you bringing it forward, but we already kind of floated it and it didn't go over well. And so, I agree with Rob. We have the ability, we have a little bit of every committee does honestly have some autonomy to operate itself, but N&E even more so to choose its own leaders. And I think we can revisit this as much as we need to that makes sense for our committee. So
Alrighty. So
Well, I want to say just a couple of things. Well, first, Michael, if this is going to be what happens, I will be eternally grateful to you for stepping in, because I don't think I could have done both. I probably would have skipped out on those board meetings. I simply could not have done both. And so, so you have taken the brunt of being the face of our communication. And thank you. just thank you for that. And otherwise, I mean, volunteering, I think we all do it, and probably all the volunteers do it because they want to help out, they don't want others to do all the work and then they sit back and say, hey, I didn't like this and I didn't like this, and etc. If you're going to complain, well, then step in and participate. But it is a lot of work. That's all. I find that when I was on the board back in the day, and it's a lot of effort, a lot of time commitment to do this kind of thing. I'm willing to do it. Maybe I'll even enjoy it. I don't know. Hard to say.
Some very
Hard to say.
pleasant people that are on the board. And there are some unpleasant people, but there are some very pleasant people on the board that I've enjoyed chatting with and all. It's not terrible.
Yes, and probably everyone on the board is doing, as they say, the best they can by their best understanding of what's needed, because that's usually very few people are do things other than for that reason. And then what did I want to say? Yeah, my main concern on the chair pro tem thing is with the chair pro tem, it implies that there is no chair. And so the chair pro tem is stepping in the absence of a chair. You wouldn't have a chair and a chair pro tem. But it doesn't surprise me that because it's not in the bylaws and et cetera, that it's, the board would have trouble swallowing this idea. And one of the things I'm willing to do is just work with the board. They have a job to do. I'd like to avoid delays and avoid having to come back and revisit and revisit and revisit. But keep things moving. That's my little 2 cents, maybe, for what it's worth.
Yeah,
Also-
my feeling is you will be a great team member to the board.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Rob.
You are, we all enjoy working with you very much. So
Oh, thank you, Rob.
it'll go well. It's just pro tem is an unrecognizable position, and I think we need to have something definitive.
Mm-hmm.
I think this board would have a hard time telling us we can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think come back and say, sorry, you only get one chance to elect a chair. I really and truly don't believe that they're going to feel that they have anything in the bylaws allows them to tell us. We are, the degree of autonomy of NNE to me is amorphous. I'm not at all clear where things begin and end. I know that somewhere it states that the board and NNE will work cooperatively.
Yeah.
So,
The board doesn't get to run the election, NNE does.
yeah.
And I want to everybody on the board is pleasant. I just disagree with some of them. So I should say that.
Yes, you should say that, Michael.
I
Thanks,
shouldn't
Michael.
have said anything at all, period. And they'll probably be happy that I'm stepping down because I shouldn't say things that I do say. But anyhow, so
Guys,
I
think, Michael, I really think we need to vote on this so it's official.
so I think we should vote.
But the vote, right,
I would like to
the motion on the table
nominate,
is that we will reestablish, I'm sorry.
I would like to nominate Gail as I at this point, I am going to step down as chair. So I'm making official that Michael has stepped down as chair and we need to elect a new chairperson. And so since Gail was elected at the last NNE, I want to nominate Gail as chair for NNE.
Second that.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Rob.
And do we need to have a discussion?
I don't need
Okay,
discussion.
vote.
Accept, thank you.
Okay, so unanimous. Gail is now chair of NNE.
Now, can I nominate you, Michael, as secretary?
I would take volunteers as secretary.
Oh.
You know what, you guys, may I interject? We've just been that the secretary got a huge work assignment coming up. Now, I'd be happy to complete it. I truly would be happy to complete it. I said to Michael, could the chair also be the secretary? Probably it's good to, not even, you don't want to change anything, but I'd be happy to complete that. And then if someone else wants to become the new secretary, I could send it off to them to proofread or whatever, and bring it back to our next meeting, or however we're going to make that happen.
Go ahead and take the secretary job, because I can make the changes. I've done it before on the thing that we talked about. If any is approved to do the manual, I can do, I know exactly what we need to do and how to do it. I did it was involved in it, so I don't mind taking that. I was kidding, I was just saying, if somebody really wants to be secretary, I don't want to cheat you out of it, so.
Well, I nominated you because I feel like the president and the secretary kind of work together closely. And you guys already have that good rapport, and kind of, it just sort of is a natural thing. I don't want to shirk responsibilities, Michael. So if you get into your busy season and you're like, this is too much, I think you bring it forward and you say, hey guys, I can't continue to do this.
I'll have
and
time.
we'll step up.
I just don't have Thursday night to go to the board
Okay.
meeting is all. I have time. I have
Thank you, Mike.
given myself margin.
Good plan.
Okay, so Karen nominated me as secretary.
I second that.
Okay, did we discuss it? So do you want to vote?
Yep. All in favor?
Okay, so elected Michael as secretary. All righty, so we've covered all our business. And
And it's 8
Um,
o'clock.
to real quickly highlight all this, I am going to go to the board meeting tomorrow night. I'm going to request that we amend the agenda so that I can bring up what happened here tonight. And
Mhm.
I'm going to request that these 4 points that Gail, if you'll make sure you email me these 4 points clearly so that I have it. I don't have to go looking through
Mhm.
emails for it. I'd appreciate that.
Mhm.
And I will go to the board tomorrow night and bring up these 4 points to get board approval, because we do not have a clear entity manual.
Mhm.
And then if the board approves these things, entity will volunteer to make all the changes and present a complete manual. And
Mhm.
that Gail is now going to come, starting the next board meeting, Gail will be chair and I will be secretary. And that's what we achieved tonight, besides looking everything else over.
Yeah.
Good
All right.
meeting.
Well,
Good
more
meeting.
power to you, Michael. You always end these on time. Alan was saying, when are we going to eat dinner? I said, Michael always ends them at 8.
And
For 7:30, but hey,
and I smell something really good in my kitchen, so.
all right. So, okay, motion to close the meeting,
Move to close.
Second.
second from Karen. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your endeavoring to persevere here, and we hammered this all out, and I think we'll be fine.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, hold on before we do anything here. I have to stop recording.